Grace was signing checks when her assistant ran into the office. "Ma, we have a problem," Chioma said. She was breathing hard like she had been running. Grace looked up from her desk. "What kind of problem?" "The bank just called. They're freezing the foundation's accounts. All of them." Grace stood up fast. Her chair rolled backward and hit the wall. "What? Why?" "They said there's a legal dispute. Someone filed a claim against the foundation. They won't give us any more information." Grace's heart started racing. The foundation had 20 million naira in those accounts. Money for scholarships, money for the new computer lab, money for 50 students who were depending on her. "Who filed the claim?" Grace asked. "They wouldn't say." "But Ma, there's more." "What?" Chioma handed Grace her phone. "This is all over social media. Someone is spreading lies about you." Grace took the phone and looked at the screen. Her hands started shaking. There was a video. A man was speaking to a camera. He was handsome, well-dressed, maybe 30 years old. Behind him was a fancy office with floor-to-ceiling windows. "My name is Kunle Balogun," the man said. "Many of you know my father, Chief Balogun, was sent to prison 8 months ago. You were told he was a thief, a fraud, a criminal." Grace's blood went cold. "Balogun. This was Chief Balogun's son. But I'm here to tell you the truth," Kunle continued. His voice was smooth, confident. "My father was innocent. He was framed by a greedy girl named Grace Okonkwo. She wanted his money, his properties, his reputation, so she lied. She manipulated judges. She destroyed a good man's life." "This is insane," Grace whispered. The video continued. "Grace Okonkwo is not a victim. She's a con artist. And I'm going to prove it. I'm going to show Lagos who she really is. I'm going to take back everything she stole from my family." The video ended. Grace looked at the comments below. Thousands of them. Most were calling her a liar, a thief, a gold digger. Grace felt sick. She sat down heavily in her chair. "Ma, what do we do?" Chioma asked. Before Grace could answer, her phone rang. It was Mr. Okoli. "Grace, have you seen the video?" Mr. Okoli asked. His voice was tight with worry. "Yes, just now. Kunle Balogun is back in Nigeria. He's been in London for the past 5 years. But he returned last week." "Grace, this is bad. Very bad." "Why? He can't do anything. His father was found guilty. The case is closed." "It's not that simple," Mr. Okoli said. "Kunle is smart. Very smart. He has a law degree from Oxford. He has connections. Money. And he's angry." Grace's stomach twisted. "What can he do to me?" "He's already filed 3 lawsuits against you. Against the foundation. Against your properties. He's claiming his father's conviction was based on false evidence. But it wasn't. We had medical records, witnesses. Everything was real." "I know," Mr. Okoli said. "But Kunle has hired the best lawyers in Nigeria. They're looking for any mistake we made, any loophole they can use." Grace felt tears burning in her eyes. "This can't be happening. I just want to help people. I just want to honor my father's memory." "I know, Grace, but we need to be careful. Kunle is not like his father. Chief Balogun was greedy and brutal, but Kunle is strategic, patient, dangerous. What should I do?" "Come to my office. Now. We need to talk about protection." Grace ended the call. She looked at Chioma. "Cancel all my meetings today. Tell the students their classes will continue as normal. Don't let anyone panic." "Yes, Ma." Grace grabbed her bag and headed for the door. But her phone buzzed again. A text message from an unknown number. "Hello, Grace. This is Kunle. We need to talk. Meet me at Protea Hotel, Victoria Island, 3 p.m. today. Come alone. If you don't come, I'll release more evidence against you. Evidence that will destroy you." Grace's hands shook. She showed the message to Chioma. "Don't go, Ma," Chioma said. "It could be a trap. If I don't go, he'll release whatever lies he has. I need to face him." Grace left the foundation building and got into her car. Her driver, Emeka, looked at her in the rearview mirror. "Where to, Ma?" Emeka asked. "Mr. Okoli's office first, then Protea Hotel." As they drove through Lagos traffic, Grace's mind was racing. Kunle Balogun, She had never met him. During her father's case, nobody mentioned he existed. Where had he been all this time? At Mr. Okoli's office, Barrister Williams was already waiting. He looked worried. "Grace, sit down," Mr. Okoli said. "We need to discuss Kunle's claims." Grace sat. What claims? His father was guilty. The judge said so. Everyone saw the evidence. Barrister Williams opened a folder. "Kunle's claiming that your father's diary was forged. He has a handwriting expert who says the diary entries were written by different people at different times." "That's impossible," Grace said. "I saw my father write in that diary every day. Can you prove it?" Barrister Williams asked gently. Grace opened her mouth, then closed it. Could she prove it? It had been 5 years since her father died. What proof did she have? "Kunle is also claiming that Dr. Ademola was paid to lie," Mr. Okoli said. "He has bank records showing that we gave Dr. Ademola money. We gave him money for his testimony expenses," Grace said. "That's normal. That's legal." "Yes, but Kunle is twisting it," Barrister Williams said. "He's making it look like we bribed the doctor." Grace felt like the walls were closing in. "So what happens now?" "Kunle has filed for a retrial," Barrister Williams said. "He wants his father's conviction overturned. If he succeeds, Chief Balogun will be released from prison, and all the property will go back to the Balogun family." "No," Grace whispered. "No, no, no. I can't lose everything again. I can't go back to being nothing." Mr. Okoli came around the desk and put his hand on Grace's shoulder. "You won't lose. We'll fight this. But you need to be strong." Grace wiped her eyes. "Kunle wants to meet me today, at 3 p.m. "Absolutely not," Mr. Okoli said. "Don't go near him. I have to. He said he'll release more evidence if I don't." Barrister Williams shook his head. "Grace, this man is trying to manipulate you. Whatever he has, let him release it. We'll deal with it in court." But Grace was already standing up. "No. I need to know what I'm fighting against. I need to look him in the eye." "Then I'm coming with you," Mr. Okoli said. He said to come alone. I don't care what he said. At 2:45 p.m., Grace and Mr. Okoli arrived at Protea Hotel. It was a luxury hotel with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Rich people in expensive clothes walked through the lobby. Grace felt out of place. Even though she had money now, she still felt like the maid from Ikeja, the girl who slept in markets, the girl who had nothing. They took the elevator to the top floor, Suite 1201. Grace knocked on the door. It opened immediately. Kunle Balogun stood in the doorway. He was tall, handsome. He wore a designer suit and expensive watch. He looked like money, like power, like someone who always got what he wanted. But his eyes were cold, empty, just like his father's. "Grace Okonkwo," Kunle said. His voice was smooth like honey. "Finally, we meet." "I brought Mr. Okoli," Grace said. "I don't trust you enough to be alone." Kunle smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "Smart girl, come in." The hotel suite was huge. A living room, a dining area, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the ocean. On the table were documents, lots of them. "Sit down," Kunle said. He poured himself a glass of whiskey. "Would you like a drink?" "No," Grace said. "I want to know what you want." Kunle sat across from them. He crossed his legs, relaxed, confident. "What I want is simple," Kunle said. "I want justice for my father, and I want you to pay for what you did." "Your father destroyed my life," Grace said. Her voice was steady, strong. "He stole from a dying man. He left me homeless. He deserved everything he got." "That's your version of the story," Kunle said. "But I have a different version. And my version has evidence." He pushed a folder across the table. Grace opened it. Inside were bank statements, legal documents, photographs. "What is this?" Grace asked. "Proof that you and Mr. Okoli conspired to frame my father. Proof that the diary was forged. Proof that witnesses were paid. Proof that you're a liar." Grace's hands shook as she looked through the papers. They looked real, official, convincing. But they were lies. They had to be lies. "These are fake," Grace said. "Are they?" Kunle asked. He took a sip of his whiskey. "Or maybe your whole story is fake. Maybe you're the criminal, not my father." Mr. Okoli grabbed the folder. He studied the documents carefully. His face went pale. These are very good forgeries, Mr. Okoli said quietly. They're not forgeries, Kunle said. They're real, and when I present them in court, your precious Grace will go to prison. Not my father. Her. Grace felt cold all over. You're lying. Am I? Kunle stood up and walked to the window. Let me tell you what's going to happen. In 2 weeks, there will be a retrial. My lawyers will present this evidence. The judge will see that you manipulated the system. Your conviction will be overturned. My father will be released, and you will lose everything. We'll fight you, Grace said. We'll prove these documents are fake. Kunle turned around. You can try, but I have more resources than you can imagine. I have lawyers, judges, politicians, people who owe my family favors. You can't win against me. Then why did you ask me here? Grace asked. If you're so sure you'll win, why waste time talking to me? Kunle smiled again. Because I'm not a monster like you think. I'm willing to make a deal. What kind of deal? Drop the criminal charges against my father. Give back 50% of the properties. Issue a public apology admitting you lied. If you do this, I'll drop my lawsuits. The foundation can continue. You keep half of what you stole. Everyone moves on. Grace stared at him. You want me to admit I lied? You want me to destroy my father's memory? You want me to let your criminal father go free? Yes, Kunle said simply. That's exactly what I want. Never, Grace said. She stood up. I'll never betray my father. I'll never give up what's rightfully mine. And I'll never let your father walk free. Kunle's smile disappeared. His face became hard, mean. Then you'll lose everything, he said. Again. Just like 5 years ago. History repeats itself, Grace. And this time, you won't survive. We'll see about that, Grace said. She walked toward the door. Mr. Okoli followed her. Grace, Kunle called out. One more thing. Grace turned around. Kunle held up his phone. I have a video. A very interesting video. It shows you and Barrister Williams meeting with Dr. Ademola 2 days before the trial. You're handing him an envelope full of cash. Grace's stomach dropped. That was for his travel expenses. That's not what it looks like on camera, Kunle said. It looks like bribery. And when this video goes public tomorrow, everyone will believe you're guilty. Grace felt like she couldn't breathe. This was worse than she thought. Much worse. You're evil, Grace whispered. Just like your father. No, Kunle said. I'm smarter than my father. He was careless, emotional. I'm neither. I plan everything. I execute perfectly. And I always win. Grace and Mr. Okoli left the hotel suite. In the elevator, Grace started crying. He's going to destroy me, Grace said. He has videos, documents, evidence. How can we fight this? Mr. Okoli's jaw was tight. We find out where he got those documents. We prove they're fake. We expose his lies. What if we can't? Grace asked. What if he really does have connections? What if he owns the judges? The elevator doors opened. They walked through the lobby. Grace felt like everyone was staring at her, judging her, believing Kunle's lies. Outside, Emeka was waiting with the car. Grace got in the back seat. She felt exhausted, defeated. Her phone buzzed. A message from Kunle. The video will be released at 6 p.m. today. You have 3 hours to accept my deal. After that, your reputation is destroyed forever. Choose wisely. Grace showed the message to Mr. Okoli. Don't respond, Mr. Okoli said. We need to think strategically. But as they drove away from the hotel, Grace saw something that made her blood freeze. Standing across the street was Mrs. Adebayo, the woman who had treated Grace like dirt for 3 years, the woman who had thrown hot tea in her face. And Mrs. Adebayo was smiling, waving at someone. Grace followed her gaze. Mrs. Adebayo was waving at Kunle Balogun. He was standing in the hotel window, looking down at the street. And he was waving back. Mrs. Adebayo and Kunle knew each other. They were working together. Grace's entire world tilted. This wasn't just about Kunle wanting revenge. This was bigger. Much bigger. Mr. Okoli, Grace said quietly, we have a serious problem. Grace sat in Mr. Okoli's office watching the clock. 5:45 p.m. 15 minutes until Kunle released the video. We need a plan, Mr. Okoli said. He was pacing back and forth. Once that video goes public, the damage will be massive. Barrister Williams was on his laptop. I'm preparing a statement. We'll say the money was for legitimate expenses. We'll show receipts. Documentation. It won't matter, Grace said quietly. People will believe what they want to believe. They'll see me handing cash to a witness and assume the worst. Then we fight back, Mr. Okoli said. We expose Kunle's lies. We show everyone who he really is. Grace's phone buzzed. A text from Chioma. Ma, students are asking questions. The rumors are spreading. What should I tell them? Grace typed back. Tell them the truth. Tell them I'm being attacked by someone who wants revenge. Tell them the foundation will survive. But Grace wasn't sure if that was true. How could the foundation survive if everyone thought she was a criminal? The clock hit 6 p.m. Grace's phone exploded with notifications. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, everyone was sharing something. She opened Twitter. The video was already there, pinned to the top of trending topics. Number Grace Okonkwo exposed. Grace watched the video with a sinking heart. It showed her and Barrister Williams meeting Dr. Ademola in a parking lot. Grace handed him a white envelope. Dr. Ademola counted the money inside. Then he shook their hands and left. The video looked damning. It looked exactly like a bribe. But Grace remembered that day. Dr. Ademola had driven from Ibadan to Lagos for the trial. They gave him money for fuel, food, hotel. It was all legitimate. But the video didn't show any of that. It just showed cash changing hands. The comments were brutal. I knew she was lying. She's just a con artist. Poor Chief Balogun. He's innocent and she destroyed him. Grace Okonkwo should go to prison. The foundation is a scam. She's stealing from students. Grace felt tears running down her face. Everything she had built, everything she had worked for, it was crumbling in minutes. Turn it off, Mr. Okoli said gently. Don't read the comments. But Grace couldn't stop. She kept scrolling, kept reading. Each comment was a knife in her heart. Then she saw something that made her pause. A comment from someone named at TruthSeeker234. This video is edited. Look at the timestamp. It jumps from 2:15 p.m. to 2:47 p.m. Where are the missing 32 minutes? Grace sat up straight. Mr. Okoli, look at this. Mr. Okoli came over and read the comment. His eyes widened. This person is right. The video has been edited. Barrister Williams grabbed the phone. He watched the video carefully. Yes. See here? The shadows changed suddenly. The light is different. Someone cut out the middle section of the video. What was in the middle section? Grace asked. Probably the part where you explained what the money was for, Barrister Williams said. The part that shows it was legitimate. So Kunle deliberately edited the video to make me look guilty, Grace said. Yes, Mr. Okoli said. But how do we prove it? Grace thought hard. We need the full video, the unedited version. If we can find it, we can show everyone the truth. But where would we get it? Barrister Williams asked. Kunle won't give it to us. Grace stood up. Then we find out who recorded it. Someone filmed that video. Someone who was there that day. We find them. Mr. Okoli nodded. I'll hire a private investigator. We'll track down the source. Grace's phone rang. It was Mama Ngozi. Grace, my daughter, are you okay? Mama Ngozi's voice was worried. I saw the video. I know it's lies. But people are saying terrible things. I'm okay, Mama Ngozi. Don't worry about me. Grace, there's something I need to tell you. About Mrs. Adebayo. Grace's heart skipped. What about her? After you left the Adebayo house 8 months ago, I stayed for 2 more weeks. Then I quit. But before I left, I heard Mrs. Adebayo on the phone. She was talking to someone about you. She said, don't worry. When the time is right, we'll destroy her. She deserves it for thinking she's better than us. Grace felt cold. Who was she talking to? I don't know. But Grace, I think Mrs. Adebayo has been planning this for a long time. After the call ended, Grace looked at Mr. Okoli. Mrs. Adebayo is involved. She's been working with Kunle this whole time. But why? Mr. Okoli asked. What does she gain from destroying you? Revenge, Grace said. I humiliated her. I exposed how she treated me. Her reputation was damaged. She wants payback. Barrister Williams was typing on his laptop. If Mrs. Adebayo is involved, we need to prove it. We need evidence of their connection. Grace thought about what she had seen outside the hotel. Mrs. Adebayo waving at Kunle. They clearly knew each other. I have an idea, Grace said. But it's risky. What is it? Mr. Okoli asked. I'm going to visit Mrs. Adebayo. I'll pretend to be defeated, broken. I'll make her think she won. And maybe, just maybe, she'll let something slip. Absolutely not, Mr. Okoli said. It's too dangerous. I don't have a choice, Grace said. Kunle is destroying me from the outside. Mrs. Adebayo is the key to understanding his plan. I need to know what they're plotting. Mr. Okoli looked worried. But he nodded. Fine. But I'm sending Emeka with you. And you'll wear a wire. We'll record everything she says. 2 hours later, Grace stood outside the Adebayo mansion in Ikeja. The same house where she had worked as a maid. The same house where she had been humiliated every day. Her hands were shaking, but she rang the doorbell. A new maid answered. A young girl, maybe 17 years old. She looked tired, overworked. Just like Grace had been. I'm here to see Mrs. Adebayo, Grace said. The maid's eyes widened. You're Grace Okonkwo. I've seen you on TV. Yes. Is Mrs. Adebayo home? The maid nodded and let Grace inside. The house looked exactly the same. Expensive furniture, marble floors, everything perfect on the outside, rotten on the inside. Mrs. Adebayo came down the stairs. She was wearing a silk robe and gold jewelry. When she saw Grace, she smiled. It was a victory smile, a cruel smile. Grace, Mrs. Adebayo said. What a surprise. I thought you'd be too busy dealing with your scandals to visit. I need to talk to you, Grace said. She made her voice small, weak, like she was defeated. Mrs. Adebayo's smile grew wider. Come to the living room. Let's chat. They sat down. Mrs. Adebayo ordered the young maid to bring tea. Grace watched the girl rush away, scared of making a mistake. Some things never changed. So, Mrs. Adebayo said, I saw the video. Very interesting. You were paying witnesses to lie for you. It wasn't like that, Grace said quietly. But nobody believes me. Of course they don't, Mrs. Adebayo said. Because you're a liar. You've always been a liar. You pretended to be a poor, helpless girl. But you were scheming the whole time. Grace bit her tongue. She wanted to scream, to tell Mrs. Adebayo exactly what she thought of her. But she needed information. How do you know Kunle Balogun? Grace asked. Mrs. Adebayo's smile faltered for just a second. I don't know what you mean. I saw you outside the hotel. You were waving at him. You know each other. Mrs. Adebayo laughed. Oh, that. Yes, I know Kunle. His father and my husband did business together. Kunle is a brilliant young man, much smarter than his father. You're helping him, aren't you? Grace said. You're helping him destroy me. Mrs. Adebayo sipped her tea. Why would I help him? What's in it for me? Revenge, Grace said. You hate me because I exposed how you treated me. You hate me because people called you cruel. You hate me because I won and you lost. Mrs. Adebayo's face hardened. You didn't win anything. You stole. You manipulated. You played the victim, and everyone felt sorry for you. But I knew the truth. I always knew you were trouble. So you teamed up with Kunle, Grace said. What's the plan? Destroy my reputation? Take back the properties? Put me in prison? Mrs. Adebayo set down her teacup. You want to know the plan? Fine. I'll tell you. Because there's nothing you can do to stop it. Grace's heart was pounding. The wire taped to her chest was recording everything. Kunle and I have been planning this for 6 months, Mrs. Adebayo said. He contacted me from London. He said he wanted revenge for his father. I said I wanted revenge for the humiliation you caused me. So we made a deal. What kind of deal? I would provide information about you. Your schedule. Your foundation. Your weaknesses. And Kunle would provide the money and lawyers to take you down. Grace felt sick. You've been spying on me for 6 months? Yes, Mrs. Adebayo said proudly. I have people watching you. I know where you go, who you meet, what you do. I even have someone working inside your foundation. Grace's blood went cold. Who? Mrs. Adebayo laughed. You'll find out soon enough. But let me tell you what's going to happen. Tomorrow, more evidence will be released. Evidence that you've been stealing money from the foundation. Evidence that the scholarships are fake. Evidence that you're running a massive scam. That's not true, Grace said. It doesn't matter if it's true, Mrs. Adebayo said. What matters is what people believe. And after tomorrow, everyone will believe you're a criminal. The foundation will be shut down, your properties will be seized, and you'll go to prison, just like Chief Balogun. Grace stood up. You're sick. You're helping an innocent man go to prison just because you want revenge on me? Chief Balogun is not in prison, Mrs. Adebayo said casually. He was released yesterday. Grace felt like she'd been punched. What? How? Kunle's lawyers filed an emergency appeal. They presented new evidence. The judge ordered Chief Balogun's immediate release pending the retrial. Grace couldn't breathe. Chief Balogun was free. The man who destroyed her life was walking around Lagos as a free man. Where is he? Grace asked. Somewhere safe, Mrs. Adebayo said. Planning his comeback. Planning his revenge. You see, Grace, you made a big mistake. You humiliated powerful people. And powerful people don't forgive. Grace heard a car pull up outside. Through the window, she saw a black Mercedes. Her stomach dropped. Chief Balogun stepped out of the car. He looked older than Grace remembered. Thinner. Harder. 8 months in prison had changed him, made him more dangerous. He walked toward the house. Mrs. Adebayo stood up and smiled. Perfect timing, Mrs. Adebayo said. Chief Balogun wanted to see you himself. Grace backed toward the door. I'm leaving. No, you're not, Mrs. Adebayo said. She nodded to someone behind Grace. Grace turned around. 2 large men blocked the door. Security guards. They were big, strong, mean-looking. Grace was trapped. Chief Balogun walked into the house. When he saw Grace, his eyes filled with hate. Grace Okonkwo, he said. His voice was like ice. The girl who put me in prison. The girl who stole my properties. The girl who destroyed my reputation. You destroyed your own reputation, Grace said. Her voice was shaking, but she kept it strong. You're a thief. A fraud. You deserved prison. Chief Balogun walked closer. He stood right in front of Grace. She could smell alcohol on his breath. I spent 8 months in that hellhole, Chief Balogun said quietly. 8 months surrounded by criminals. Eating terrible food, sleeping on a hard bed, being treated like garbage. Do you know what that does to a man? You should have thought about that before you stole from my father, Grace said. Chief Balogun's hand moved fast. He grabbed Grace's throat. Grace gasped. She couldn't breathe. She clawed at his hand, but he was too strong. You destroyed my life. Chief Balogun hissed. Now I'm going to destroy yours. Slowly. Painfully. I'm going to take everything from you. Your foundation. Your money. Your freedom. Your hope. And when you're broken and alone and desperate, I'm going to laugh. Just like you laughed when they took me to prison. I never laughed. Grace choked out. Chief Balogun squeezed harder. Grace's vision started going dark. She couldn't breathe. She was going to die. Suddenly, the front door burst open. Police, let her go! Chief Balogun released Grace's throat. She fell to the floor, gasping for air. Police officers rushed into the house. Behind them was Mr. Okoli and Barrister Williams. Grace! Mr. Okoli ran to her side. Are you okay? Grace nodded, still coughing. Her throat hurt, but she was alive. A police officer grabbed Chief Balogun. Chief Balogun, you're under arrest for assault. This is ridiculous, Chief Balogun shouted. I didn't do anything. This girl is lying. We have it all on tape, Barrister Williams said. He held up a phone. The wire Grace was wearing recorded everything. Your threats, the assault, Mrs. Adebayo's confession about the conspiracy, all of it. Mrs. Adebayo's face went white. No, that's not. I didn't mean. You confessed to conspiracy to commit fraud, the police officer said. You admitted to working with Kunle Balogun to destroy Grace Okonkwo's reputation. You're under arrest too. Another officer handcuffed Mrs. Adebayo. She started crying. Please, I have children. I have a family. You should have thought about that before, Grace said quietly. As the police led them away, Chief Balogun looked back at Grace. This isn't over. My son will finish what I started. You'll never be safe. The door closed. They were gone. Grace sat on the floor, shaking. Mr. Okoli helped her stand up. It's over, Mr. Okoli said. We have the evidence we need. Chief Balogun will go back to prison. Mrs. Adebayo will face charges. You're safe now. But Grace shook her head. No, it's not over. Kunle is still out there, and he's smarter than his father. More dangerous. He won't stop until I'm destroyed. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Impressive, Grace. You survived round 2. But the game isn't finished. Tomorrow, I release the final evidence. Evidence you can't fight. Evidence that will end you. Sleep well. It's your last night of peace. Grace showed the message to Mr. Okoli. His face went pale. What evidence could he possibly have? Grace didn't know. But she was scared. More scared than she'd ever been. Because Kunle Balogun was still out there. Still planning. Still plotting. And tomorrow, her whole world might collapse. Grace didn't sleep that night. She sat in her father's house watching the clock. Waiting for Kunle to release his final evidence. Waiting for her world to end. At 6 a.m., her phone started buzzing. Calls. Messages. Emails. Everyone was trying to reach her. Grace opened Twitter with shaking hands. The evidence was already there. Trending. Going viral. It was a document. An official-looking document with stamps and signatures. It claimed to be her father's will. His real will. And according to this will, Chief Okonkwo had left everything to Chief Balogun. Not to Grace. To Balogun. The will was dated 2 days before her father died. It said, I, Chief Okonkwo, being of sound mind, leave all my properties and assets to my dear friend, Chief Balogun. My daughter Grace has disappointed me. She is irresponsible and ungrateful. I do not wish her to inherit anything. Grace felt like someone had stabbed her in the heart. This was a lie. A horrible, cruel lie. Her father loved her. He would never write something like this. But the document looked real. It had her father's signature, official seals, witness signatures. The comments were brutal. So Grace Okonkwo has been lying this whole time. Her own father didn't trust her with his money. She fabricated evidence to steal from Chief Balogun. Grace Okonkwo belongs in prison. Grace's phone rang. It was Mr. Okoli. Grace, don't believe it, Mr. Okoli said immediately. That will is fake. Your father's real will left everything to you. We have the original document. This is just another forgery. But it looks so real, Grace said. Tears were streaming down her face. Everyone will believe it. We'll prove it's fake. Barrister Williams is already analyzing it. We'll find the mistakes. But Grace wasn't listening. She was reading more comments, more hate, more accusations. Her phone rang again. This time it was Chioma. Ma, the foundation. Students are withdrawing. Parents are demanding refunds. The staff want to resign. Ma, what do we do? Grace closed her eyes. Everything was falling apart, just like Kunle promised. Tell everyone to wait, Grace said. Give me 24 hours. I'll fix this. But Grace didn't know how to fix it. Kunle had planned everything perfectly. Every attack, every piece of evidence, every lie. How could she fight someone so smart, so rich, so connected? Grace's doorbell rang. She looked through the window. A police car was parked outside. Her heart stopped. Were they here to arrest her? Grace opened the door. 2 police officers stood there. But they weren't alone. Behind them was someone Grace didn't expect. Funke. Mrs. Adebayo's daughter. Funke looked different, thinner, tired. Her expensive clothes were gone. She wore simple jeans and a t-shirt. Grace, Funke said quietly. I need to talk to you. It's important. Grace didn't trust Funke. But the police officers nodded. She came to the station this morning, one officer said. She has information about Kunle Balogun, information you need to hear. Grace let them inside. They sat in the living room. Funke looked nervous, scared. Why are you here? Grace asked. Because I can't stay silent anymore, Funke said. My mother is in jail because of Kunle Balogun, and I know things that can help you. What things? Funke took a deep breath. The will Kunle released this morning? It's fake. I know because I saw him create it. Grace sat up straight. You saw him? Yes. 3 weeks ago, Kunle came to our house. He brought a man with him. A document forger. They had samples of your father's handwriting. They had official stamps they bought on the black market. I watched them create that fake will in our dining room. Grace's heart was racing. Why would you help me? You hate me. I did hate you, Funke said honestly. When you left our house and became rich, I was jealous. Angry. I thought you didn't deserve it. But then I saw what Kunle was doing to you. The lies, the manipulation, the cruelty. And I realized something. What? You were right about us, Funke said. Tears filled her eyes. My family is cruel. We treated you like garbage. You didn't deserve any of that. And I'm ashamed. I'm so ashamed of who I was. Grace didn't know what to say. After my mother was arrested, my father left. Funke continued. He took all the money and ran. He left me with nothing. No money. No home. No family. I'm living with my grandmother now. And I finally understand what you went through. What it feels like to lose everything. I'm sorry, Grace said quietly. Don't be sorry, Funke said. I deserved it. But you don't deserve what Kunle is doing to you. So I'm here to help. I have proof. I recorded Kunle and the forger on my phone. I have the video. Grace's hands started shaking. You have proof the will is fake? Yes. Funke pulled out her phone. But there's more. I know where Kunle is hiding other evidence. False documents, forged signatures, everything he's planning to use against you in court. Where? His office. In Victoria Island. He keeps everything in a safe. I know the code because I saw him open it once. Mr. Okoli burst into the house. He had been listening at the door. This is it, Mr. Okoli said. This is how we destroy him. We get that evidence. We expose his lies. We end this. But how do we get into his office? Grace asked. He'll have security, guards, cameras. Funke stood up. I can get you in. Kunle trusts me. He thinks I'm on his side. I can tell him I have more information about you. He'll let me into his office. And I can open the safe. It's too dangerous, Grace said. If he finds out you're betraying him, I don't care, Funke said. Her voice was strong now, determined. I need to do this. I need to make things right. 3 hours later, Grace, Mr. Okoli, Funke, and 2 police officers stood outside Kunle's office building. It was a tall glass tower in Victoria Island. Expensive. Modern. Powerful. Funke went inside alone. She was wearing a wire, just like Grace had worn at Mrs. Adebayo's house. Grace and the others waited in a van across the street. They could hear everything through Funke's wire. Mr. Balogun will see you now, a secretary's voice said. Footsteps. A door opening. Funke. Kunle's voice was smooth. Welcoming. What brings you here? I have information about Grace, Funke said. Information you'll want to hear. Oh? What kind of information? She's planning something. I heard her on the phone with her lawyer. They're going to file a counter lawsuit. They're going to claim all your evidence is fake. Kunle laughed. Let them try. I have everything documented. They can't prove anything. But what if they can? Funke asked. What if they find you're safe? What if they discover the documents you've been hiding? There was a pause. How do you know about my safe? I saw it last time I was here, Funke said smoothly. You should move those documents somewhere safer. Somewhere Grace could never find them. The documents are perfectly safe where they are, Kunle said. Nobody knows the code except me. Can I see them? Funke asked. I just want to make sure they're convincing. I want to make sure Grace has no way to fight back. Another pause. Longer this time. Why do you care so much about destroying Grace? Kunle asked. His voice was suspicious now. Because she destroyed my family, Funke said. My mother is in jail. My father abandoned us. We lost everything. Grace Okonkwo ruined my life. I want her to suffer. Grace listened in the van. Even though she knew Funke was acting, the words still hurt. Fine, Kunle said finally. I'll show you. Grace heard footsteps, a beeping sound, a safe opening. These are the originals, Kunle said. The fake medical records, the altered bank statements, the forged signatures. Everything that proves Grace paid witnesses and fabricated evidence. They look perfect, Funke said. She'll never be able to fight this. Exactly, Kunle said proudly. By tomorrow, Grace Okonkwo will be ruined. Her foundation will be shut down. Her properties will be seized. And she'll go to prison. Just like she sent my father to prison. Your father deserved prison, Funke said quietly. What? Kunle's voice changed. Became hard. Dangerous. Your father was a thief, Funke said. He stole from a dying man. He destroyed a young girl's life. He deserved everything he got. You're wearing a wire, Kunle said. Aren't you? Yes, Funke said. Grace heard crashing sounds, shouting. Kunle was searching Funke. He found the wire and ripped it off. The audio went dead. We need to move now, Mr. Okoli shouted. Grace and the police officers ran into the building. They took the elevator to the 20th floor. Grace's heart was pounding. They burst into Kunle's office. Kunle had Funke by the arm. He was pulling her toward the door. When he saw Grace and the police, he let go. This is illegal, Kunle shouted. You can't just barge into my office. We have a warrant, one police officer said. He held up a document. Based on the recording Funke Adebayo provided this morning, showing you creating forged documents, Kunle's face went pale. That recording is inadmissible. It was obtained illegally. Actually, it wasn't, the officer said. Funke was acting as a witness for the police. Everything was done legally. The officers walked to the safe. It was still open. Inside were stacks of documents. Barrister Williams, who had just arrived, started examining them. His eyes widened. This is incredible, Barrister Williams said. These are all forgeries, fake medical records, altered bank statements, false witness statements. Everything Kunle has been using against Grace is fake. Grace walked toward Kunle. She looked him in the eye. It's over, Grace said quietly. You lost. No, Kunle said. I'll appeal. I'll find new evidence. You'll go to prison, Grace said. Just like your father. For fraud. For forgery. For conspiracy. For assault by proxy through your father. Kunle's hands curled into fists. You think you're so smart, so righteous. But you're just lucky. You got lucky with my father. You got lucky with Funke. Luck runs out. This wasn't luck, Grace said. This was justice. Something your family knows nothing about. The police officers handcuffed Kunle. Kunle Balogun, you're under arrest for multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. As they led him away, Kunle looked back at Grace. My father was right about you. You're dangerous. You destroy families. No, Grace said. Your family destroyed itself. With greed. With lies. With cruelty. I just made sure you faced the consequences. After Kunle was gone, Grace turned to Funke. Thank you. You saved me. Funke hugged Grace. I'm so sorry. For everything. For how I treated you. For how my family hurt you. I'm sorry. Grace hugged her back. I forgive you. The next morning, the real story broke. Videos of Kunle's confession. Photos of the forged documents. Witness statements from the forger. Everything. The news spread across Lagos. Across Nigeria. Across the world. Grace Okonkwo had been telling the truth all along. She was the victim. The Balogun family were the criminals. Grace's phone exploded with messages. Apologies. Support. Donations to the foundation. Students came back. Parents apologized. Staff returned to work. The foundation was saved. 2 weeks later, Grace stood in court for the final time. The judge read the verdict. Kunle Balogun is found guilty on all counts. He is sentenced to 12 years in prison. Chief Balogun's previous conviction is upheld. He will serve his remaining sentence plus 5 additional years for the assault on Grace Okonkwo. Grace felt tears on her face. But this time they were tears of relief. of joy. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded her. Miss Grace, how do you feel about the verdict? Grace looked at the cameras, at the microphones, at all the people watching. I feel grateful, Grace said. Grateful for justice. Grateful for the people who stood by me. Grateful for the chance to honor my father's memory by helping others. What's next for you and the foundation? We're expanding, Grace said with a smile. We're opening 2 new locations. We're adding more scholarships. We're helping more young people build better lives. Because that's what my father would have wanted. Not revenge. Not bitterness, but hope, progress, change. That evening, Grace sat in her father's house with Mr. Okoli and Mama Ngozi. You did it, Mr. Okoli said. You survived both father and son. You won. We won, Grace corrected. I couldn't have done this alone. Mama Ngozi served dinner. Good food. Jollof rice, fried plantains, chicken. They ate and laughed and celebrated. Later, Grace stood by the window looking at the ocean. The moon was bright. The waves were calm. Her phone buzzed. A message from Funke. Thank you for giving me a second chance. I start my new job at the foundation next week. I won't let you down. Grace smiled. She had hired Funke to work at the foundation. Not as punishment, but as redemption. Everyone deserved a second chance. Grace thought about everything that had happened. The pain, the fear, the battles, but also the strength she had found, the courage she had built, the person she had become. She was no longer the scared maid from Ikeja. She was no longer the homeless girl sleeping in markets. She was Grace Okonkwo, survivor, fighter, winner. Her father's legacy lived on. Not through money, not through properties, but through the lives she was changing, the hope she was creating, the future she was building. The Balogan family had tried to destroy her twice, and twice she had risen stronger. She was unstoppable now. And this time, finally, she was truly free. Comment for part 3.